Now we are going to discuss these topics: business environment, strategy, business combination, forecasting, approaches and techniques, and appropriate cost of capital. The point that we need to understand as to why these topics are there as part of our course curriculum. Now these are part of our course curriculum because as valuation professional, this is what we will need to understand all the time. So tomorrow when you do a valuation of a company, you will need to know as to what is the business environment of that company, what is the strategy of that company, and that is the reason why we have this topic as part of our course curriculum. Now the question is, what is valuation? Valuation is to find worth of an asset or a liability. What is the purpose of valuation? The purpose of valuation is to take a decision, and this is what we must remember. Some of you have left your speaker phone on unmute. You can please switch it off. So what is the purpose of valuation? Purpose of valuation is to take a decision, and this, friends, is very important that all of us need to remember all the time. Purpose of valuation is to take a decision. Valuation is not merely a paper exercise. Valuation is not merely an exercise in Excel sheet. Valuation is much more than that. And what is valuation? Valuation is to help the corporate. Valuation is to help your client take a decision. What do we try to achieve while doing valuation? So when we are working on any assignment of valuation, what is that we are trying to do? And remember, what we are trying to do is to find fair value of that asset or that liability. We are trying to find out fair value of that asset or that liability. What is the process for valuation? The process for valuation starts from the purpose of valuation. So whenever you and I have to work on a valuation assignment, first thing that you and I need to understand as to what is the purpose. So once we know the purpose, the next thing that we need to find out what is the premise, and so on and so forth. What we also need to understand, the role of cost of capital in case of valuation, and that is what we will be discussing as we move forward in this session. So remember, friends, as valuation professional, arriving at the fair value by using whatever approach or method needs to be our main driver. Many times I do receive phone calls from other fellow valuation professionals, and they would invariably ask that we have to do valuation of this company, that company, which approach should I use, which method should I use, is a general query that I would hear many times from the fellow professionals. And remember, there is no hard and fast rule when it comes to the valuation. What you and I need to remember is, you and I need to find out the fair value of that asset or fair value of that liability. For finding out the fair value of that asset or fair value of that liability, whatever is required to be done has to be done. It is as simple as that, and there is no ambiguity about it. So long as the method that you are using, so long as the approach that you are applying is going to give you fair value, that's it. And that is what is all required. Now let's come to the first topic of our agenda for today, that is valuation application, and the first topic is business environment analysis. So अगर आपको एक कंपनी का वैल्यूएशन करना है, and what are the things that you would need to know? So obviously the first thing that you and I would need to know is the business environment analysis. That means what is the environment in which this entity is working, and therefore for doing the environment analysis, business environment analysis, what we need to understand something which is known as EIC analysis. Now what is EIC analysis? EIC analysis, E stands for economy, I stands for industry, and C stands for company. So what we need to do, we need to first do the economic analysis, then we need to do the industry analysis, and then we need to do the company analysis. Now once we do the analysis of these three factors, that will give us a very strong idea about the business analysis. But I would go one step further, friends, and I would add one more thing to it, and that is G, global. So instead of saying EIC analysis, I would say GEIC analysis. G for global, E for economy, I for industry, and C for company. So as a valuation professional, whenever we are working on a valuation, for the entity for which we are doing the valuation, we need to do the GEIC, global economic industry and company analysis. Now, what is global analysis? So obviously today we are into a scenario where though we may be working in a small place in India, but really speaking, the product and the services that we produce are going to have far-reaching implications globally. So we need to find out in the first place as to what is happening in the global economy. How is the global economy taking shape? What are the development? What is happening in America? What is happening in Europe? What is happening in Asia? What is happening in South America? What is happening in Brazil? What is happening in Japan? Now, all that we need to know constantly. Be aware of the global environment as such. Then we come to the economic analysis. That means we come down to India and look at the India's economic analysis. So, and that's where we need to understand as to what is happening to the GDP of the country. And is the GDP growing, or is the GDP stagnant, or it is declining? Because depending on where the GDP is heading to, that will have bearing on the valuation of the company for which you are doing the assignment. So we need to look at the GDP. We need to look at the government policies, like what is the approach of the government in terms of boosting the economic growth. Say for example, I am sure all of us have noticed it, that since the pandemic, India's economy has shrunk almost by 9 to 10%. Now, if the economy of the country is shrinking by 9 to 10%, one can imagine as to what kind of impact it will have on the well-being of the people of the country. And therefore, in a situation like this, it becomes the responsibility of the government to ensure that the economic activities are boosted. And that is how the government of India from time to time have been coming out with different stimulus packages. So you look at do the economic analysis, look at the GDP, look at the government tax structure as to how the government is trying to use the tax for boosting the economic. I'm sure again you would notice that about 2 years back the government of India brought down the corporate tax rates. And again, why is that the government of India decided to bring down the tax rates? Primarily because the government of India wanted to leave more cash in the hands of the corporates, so that the corporates could use that cash for doing the capex. Because when they do the capex, the economic growth of the revenue earning capacities increase in the economy, and that helps the economy becoming better. So then you do the economic analysis, and that's where you look at the imports and exports, trade deficit, balance of payment situation, reserve situation, how the FDI is coming into the country, how the investment from outside India is coming into the country. All those factors will need to be analyzed, because they will give you an idea as to how strong or weak India's economy is. So you look at the economic analysis, then you come to the industry analysis. So when in industry analysis, you would look at the competitors landscape. So the company for which you are doing the evaluation, who are the competitors of this company? Where do they stand? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How do you benchmark this company vis-a-vis its competitors? And that is what will need to be done. The next thing is sectoral analysis. So different sectors of the economy will need to be examined, and more so the sector or the industry to which this company belongs will need to be analyzed and see. And there are various tools available. We are going to discuss all those tools as we move forward. Then we come to the company analysis. So when it comes to the company analysis, you look at the company background. And when you talk in terms of company background, what do you look at? You look at everything about that company. When the company was started, who are the promoters of the company, what is the history of the company, is the company making profit or the company has been making losses? If the company has been making profit, how the company has used those profits, Is it a standalone company or it's a company that belongs to a big group? Who are the promoters? What is the senior management comprises of? What are the philosophy of the management in terms of values and things like that? So look at all those aspects about the company. Is it a single product company? Is it a multi-product company? Is it a single location company? Is it a multi-location company? Is the company's having a multi-geography presence, or the company is having a single geography presence? So all those things will need to be looked at as far as the company background is concerned. After they do look at the financial statement analysis, and that's again obviously the company whose valuation you are doing, ultimately everything boils down to the numbers. So the valuation that you would do will ultimately boils down to the numbers. So you will need to do the financial analysis of the company. And in case of financial analysis of the company, friends, you can do the historical analysis, and you can of course do the futuristic analysis also. So doesn't really matter whether you're doing the futuristic analysis or you're doing historical analysis. The tools and techniques which are available for both these analysis are same. खाली फर्क इतना है कि अगर आप फ्यूचरिस्टिक एनालिसिस कर रहे हैं, then you will need to have projected cash flow, projected balance sheet, projected P&L. If you are doing the historical financial analysis, in that case you will need to have the historical financial statements maybe for 5, 6, 7 years, depending on the kind of company that you are dealing with. So what you do in case of historical financial analysis or futuristic financial analysis, you basically look at, you analyze the company from different angles. So you look at the perspective of the profitability as to how has been the profitability of this company in the past. And remember, when you're looking at the profitability, so you can look at the profitability of the company from the perspective of sales. So, and that's where you will calculate the gross profit ratio, the EBITDA margin ratio, or you will calculate the net profit ratio. Profitability can also be looked at from the perspective of the people who have given capital to the company. And that's where you will look at what is the return on investment of this company, what is the return on equity of this company, what is the return on capital employed of this company. So that is what you would look at actually. And then you would look at the liquidity ratio, and that's where you will find out as to how liquid the company is, what is the ability of this company to take care of its obligations, financial obligations in short term. After looking at the liquidity situation, then you will analyze the efficiency, and that's where you will calculate many of the efficiency ratios, which are also known as turnover ratio, or which are also known as activity ratio. So what you will do, you will find out the sales turnover ratio, and sales turnover ratio, so you will divide the sales by the total assets, or by the total current assets, or by the fixed assets, and this is how you will find out as to how this company is using its assets, and that will give you the efficiency ratio. The number 4 that you would look at is the working capital management ratios. And again, in case of working capital management, you can look at from two perspectives. Number 1, from the perspective of turnover, and number 2, from the perspective of number of days. That means how many days of inventory the company is holding. Longer the number, bigger the number, worse it is. So obviously for a company to get good valuation, it is necessary that the company should be holding as less inventory as possible. The receivables, same is the case with the receivables, same is the case with the cash flow or cash balance also, because ultimately as far as the working capital management is concerned, obviously जितनी कंपनी के पास इन्वेंट्री कम होगी, जितनी कंपनी के रिसीवेबल्स कम होंगे, so much is better. So friends, all this what you will do for the purpose of business environment analysis. Now let us look at the tools. Which are the tools that are available for doing this analysis? So first of all, tools for macroeconomic analysis. Now what are the tools available for macroeconomic analysis? Number 1 is known as PEST analysis. PEST is P-E-S-T. P-E-S-T, PEST analysis. So in case of PEST analysis, P stands for political, E stands for economic, S stands for social, and T stands for technological. अब जरा समझ के लीजिए कि what are we doing, क्या कर रहे हैं हम? We are trying to do the business environment analysis. That means the company of whose valuation I am trying to find out. I need to understand as to what is the business environment of this company. So what will I do? I will do something which is known as pest analysis. So pest, as I said earlier, and pest, one P is political, E is economical, S is social, T is technological. So these are the four aspects of pest analysis. So basically, what I'm trying to find out when I'm doing pest analysis, I'm trying to find out as to what is the political environment in which this company is working, what is the economic environment in which this company is working, what is the social environment in which this company is working, and what is the technological environment in which this company is working. Because all these factors will have a positive or negative impact on the valuations of a company. So that is your pest analysis. And remember friends, there can be a question in your exam, PEST. In PEST, T stands for, and they will give you different options. Three options will be wrong. The fourth one, T, there will be one answer which is technological. So obviously, if you have understood, you would be able to answer it as technology. So that is how that's your pest analysis. The second tool that we have is known as pestle analysis. Now this is all part of your course curriculum that I am discussing with you. So you also have a pestle analysis. So what is pestle analysis? In case of pestle analysis, you just have the addition of E and L. E stands for environment, L stands for legal. So when you are doing evaluating a company, so you will do the pestle analysis. That means in addition to what you did in the pest analysis, you will also do the environmental analysis and the legal analysis. So this is your pestle analysis. So in case of pestle analysis, PEST, you understand, E stands for environment, L stands for legal. Then you have SWOT analysis, and I'm sure friends, SWOT analysis you all must have heard of 10,000 times in past. So we all understand SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities and threat. And what we need to understand here, that strength and weaknesses are internal, whereas opportunities and threats are external. So whenever I am doing evaluation of a company, I would always carry out the evaluation, a SWOT analysis of this company to find out as to what are the strengths of this company, weaknesses of this company, opportunities of this company and threats of this company, because that will give me an idea as to what kind of valuation this company must be getting. So from the SWOT analysis, then what we have is tools for entities business strategy analysis. So obviously friends, if we have to do the evaluation of a company, we would also like to see as to what kind of strategy this business is deploying, because ultimately depending on the strategy that is deployed by a business, the growth of that business will happen. And so if the strategy deployed by the business is strong, the growth of this business is going to be strong. And if the growth of this business is going to be strong, as a result of that, the valuation of this business is also going to be positive and going to be high. Now, what are the tools available for the purpose of business strategy analysis? We will discuss them one by one, but let me tell you at this point in time. Number one is Michael Porter's 5 forces model. Number two, Boston Consulting Group's growth share matrix. Number 3, GE McKinsey matrix 9-box model. And number 4, ADL matrix. And number 5 is core competencies. Now, core competencies is a concept that was given by C.K. Prahlad Rao. I am sure all of you must have heard of this name. He was a professor at the Harvard University. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years back. And he was the one who spoke about the core competency. Let us understand these 5 things, friends, one by one. So first of all, let's look at the Michael Porter's 5 forces model. अब हम क्या कर रहे हैं? Now, what is the use and the utility of this model and what we are trying to find out? We are trying to find out कि ये कंपनी जिसके लिए मैं वैल्यूएशन कर रहा हूँ उस कंपनी की स्ट्रेटजी किस तरह की होगी. Now that will depend on the 5 forces that Michael Porter spoke about in his 5 forces model. So which is the first force? The first force is the potential entrant. That means the industry that to which this company belongs, is entry to this industry open to all, or it is restricted. Now remember, it may not be restricted in terms of government permission. The restriction may be in terms of size, in terms of funds requirement, in terms of technology, or whatever. So the number one is the first force is potential entrant. Is it possible for anyone to walk into this industry, or it is difficult? If it is possible for everyone to walk into this industry and start the business, obviously this industry is not very attractive one. But if it is not possible for everyone to come and start the business, that means this is a good industry. The second force is the buyer's bargaining power. Are the buyers, the customers, in a position to dictate the terms, or it is the company which is able to dictate the terms? And you can understand, if the company is able to dictate the terms to the customer, this company will get better. This company is better placed in terms of its future. The third force is substitutes. Is it that this company has got a lot of substitutes available, or this company does not have any substitute available? And I am sure you can understand, if a company has got many substitutes available, that means so much of demand of this company is going to be low, because anybody who wants to have this kind of a product can always go to somebody. But if there are no substitutes available to the product that this company is making, this company will get a big valuations. The fourth force of the Michael Porter's model is suppliers. So suppliers are another force in the Michael Porter's 5-force model. Are supplier in a dominating position, or the company is in a dominating position? That means, is it that the company has to listen to what suppliers are saying, or it is the suppliers who depends on the company? So if the suppliers depend on the company, obviously in that case company has got a upper hand. If the company has got an upper hand, that means company's strategy is going to be so much better placed. And finally, the fifth force is the competitive rivalry. That means, where do the competitors of this company stands? Are there too many competitors, or there are very few competitors? If there are too many competitors, is it a very tough competition, or there is not much competition? So depending on as to what is the competitive rivalry, again the strategy of this business will be decided. So friends, this is your Michael Porter's 5 forces model for the purpose of industry analysis. The next tool that you have is Boston Consulting Group's growth share matrix. Meaning what? Meaning Boston Consulting Group devised this particular model for the purpose of evaluating attractiveness of a company. They devised this model for deciding as to what kind of strategy or what kind of stand the management should take with regard to a particular product of the company, or with regard to a company itself. So now in the BCG matrix, there are 2 parameters which are taken into account. One is the market share of the company, and the second is the growth rate of the market. And I'm sure you can understand very easily. तो अगर मुझे किसी कंपनी को एनालाइज करना है और उस कंपनी के फ्यूचर के बारे में सोचना है, तो व्हाट विल आई लुक एट? आई विल लुक एट नंबर 1, व्हाट इज माय मार्केट शेयर as a company, as a product, what is my market share? And number 2, what is the growth of the industry? So these are the 2 parameters on which the Boston Consulting Group has got this growth share model matrix. So now please pay attention. That means what? That means if a company is having, if a product, let's say we are talking about the Tata Group, if the Tata Group has to do the strategic planning, what they will do? They will place all the companies on the Boston Consulting Group model, and they'll find out for a particular company how is the market share, and they will also find out for that particular company how is the industry growth rate. So please pay attention. If a company is having high market share and high industry growth. High market share and high industry growth. That means this is a star company. Market share भी ज़्यादा है और industry की growth rate भी ज़्यादा है. That means this is a star company and this has to be nurtured. This has to be tapped. So what you do with a star company? You don't do anything with a star company. You just keep enjoying the benefits of the star company. Then you have a second situation. Now what is the second situation? The second situation is market share is high. Market share of the company's product is high, but the industry growth rate is low. So this, a company that will fall into this box is referred as cash cow. And I'm sure you can understand why it is referred as cash cow, because company's market share is high but the industry growth rate is low. That means future potential ज़्यादा नहीं है, इसलिए this is known as cash cow. So what you do with the cash cow? You, as a strategy, I'm saying you should not do it in real life with cows in any case, but as a business strategy, what you do with the cash cow, milk it as much as you can before your market share also becomes negligible. So that is your cash cow. Then the third situation is where the market share is low. So there is a company in Tata's group, market share of this company is low, but the industry growth rate is very high. So that means the future potential is phenomenal because the market growth rate is high. So that means the future potential is good, but the current market share is low. So these are referred as question mark. So what you do with the question mark? You try and convert the question mark into a star. That means what? That means industry growth rate is high and your market share is low. So make your strategy to increase your market share. So if you increase your market share with high industry growth, you become another star company. And the fourth situation is your market share is low and industry growth rate is also low. Both the things are low. So which are the companies that will fall into this box? Those are referred as dogs. And what you do with the dogs? You shoo them away because the market potential is less and your market share is also less. And therefore, what as a business group, what you will do, you will remove this product from your portfolio. And why would you remove this product from your portfolio? Because you better spend your time and efforts on the products which are falling into the category of star or in the category of question mark or in the category of cash cow, because that will give you much higher value for your business. So that's, friends, your business consulting group. Then next one is GE McKinsey's matrix. Now GE McKinsey's matrix has got 9 boxes and that is how it is also known as 9-box matrix. 9-box matrix. Now
excuse me, sir.
Please.
Sir, can you try to share the screen once again?
Certainly. I will certainly try that. Yes. I hope it works this time. I can understand because it becomes much easier if you're able to see what I'm discussing. It's really strange. Once you show a PPT and next time you try and show, it doesn't come only on the screen. I don't know why does that happen. It's really strange, but give me a minute. I'm just trying it. Is the voice now okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is something really very strange. You know what? Once last time I showed that slide to you, PPT to you, and after that, you know, when I'm trying to share, this PPT is not coming on that screen.
Maybe you can select the option that you need to share the entire screen.
Yeah, I did that
If you
as
select the
well.
entire screen.
Okay, let me try that as well. Sure, I'll do that. So okay, so what I'm doing is now I'm sharing my entire screen, and please tell me what do you see. What do you see on your screen now? Yeah, please tell me what do you see on your screen now?
So that message was flashed that you are sharing your screen, but now we are not able to see anything.
We're able to see your screen. We're able to see your screen.
Now?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Okay, good. So you
But
can.
not the PPT. But not the PPT. We can see the screen, but not the PPT.
Now?